want to also mention that yes, the way things have been going about in terms of the jungle justice and all those things, I'm against it. It's not right. But there's a reason for that, right? And this is why I try to understand. There's corruption, right? When the government refuses to do what it's supposed to do, when people have been pained, there's pressure, there's going to be a bust. And that's what's happening in South Africa. The government is not doing what it's supposed to do. The government is not securing the borders. It's not adhering to the laws when it comes to employment of South Africans and things like that. So the people have had enough and they've taken matters into their own hands. But it's important that we take a balanced perspective in all these things, right? While it's important for South Africans or every other country on the continent to secure their borders, right? It's important. South Africans need to secure their borders. That's a no-brainer. It's a sovereign nation. Sovereign nations have to do that. They have to enforce migration laws. And this is where the immigration people in South Africa fall short. Now, I do want to say that going to South Africa, traveling in Southern Africa, South Africa was the best welcoming experience I ever had. While at the airport, the person was a very pleasant conversation, and the person, even though I went with my African passport, my country's passport, there wasn't any, let's do an extra search, which I experienced in other Southern African countries. So it shows that even South Africa just wants people to abide by the laws. If you're coming in legal, you have your papers, I don't think there will be an issue at all. So enforcing immigration laws is important. And because I've heard several things about corruption within the South African immigration sector, which is something the government needs to fix. Another thing is that countries have the right to deport people who are in the country unlawfully, but it has to be done through due process. For all you Africans, every African country has the right to deport people who are in their country unlawfully. However, it has to be done in due process. Just because they deport you doesn't mean that they are xenophobic. Now, a lot of people travel unlawfully and things like that. It happens. But you have to understand that countries have the right to deport people who are in their country unlawfully. And then countries have the right to protect employment opportunities for their citizens when it's appropriate. And I think this is one of the areas where South Africa is really trying to make sure that their government adheres to this. And this is where a lot of people have problems, but it is the truth. There are preferences. In every country, some countries have government positions has to be employed by their citizens. There are certain areas in public work that citizens of a country have to occupy. So every country has the right to caveats for its citizenry so they can be employed. And most of the complaints for a lot of South Africans is that this is no longer the case in South Africa because of certain things that are happening, etc., etc., etc. But now, at the same time, government have their responsibility as well. And this is where South Africa has fallen short, its government, right? Now, the government needs to protect all people from violence. One thing I've noticed is that through this whole chaos in South Africa, the police are nowhere to be found. Like, people are walking up to people and threatening them. That's not right. The police has to come in place and say, hey, let's take this to court, or let this person be arrested and tried in court. Not people punching each other and jungle justice on the streets, and the police are there and they're not doing anything. That's wrong. And then the government has to avoid blaming entire nationalities for economic or social problems. I know a lot of South Africans don't want to hear this, but Nigerians are not the problem why you don't have a job. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. Kenyans are not the reasons. Zimbabweans are not the reasons. Zambians are not the reasons. The Pakistani are not the reasons. The Lebanese are not the reason. Your government is the reason. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. If your government set in place laws that protects its citizens from certain jobs, or that say, listen, if you're coming to South Africa, you open up a business, these are the number of South Africans you need to employ, and that is enforced, you won't have this problem. And that is just the honest, factual truth. So what does this mean? This means that the government of South Africa and the government of every African country as a whole needs to address the underlying issues of governance has to be addressed within these countries, right? And also corruption. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's like we say this all the times about corruption and nothing happens, but we have to keep saying it. So countries need to address governance issues, corruption issues, education issues, infrastructural issues, and then job creation. These are the underlying issues that needs to happen in South Africa. Now, it's going to take time because South Africa is a very interesting case on the continent. South Africa is a very interesting country. That is why when the citizens are, oh, this is happening, I don't blame them. I don't. My only thing is that things need to be done with due process. We need to find a way to not resort to violence on the continent. We need to find a way not to resort to hatred of each other on the continent, because that does not move us forward. And that is why I asked the question I asked. June 30th has happened, South Africans. What is next? Now that you've taken everybody out, the work begins. South Africans, you have to show us that indeed it wasn't other countries that were taking your jobs and making your country a disaster. We believe you. I believe you. Whatever you say, it's your country. But now you have to let us know, because you've taken your action. You've done what you needed to do that makes you feel good. Okay, you're right. So now what? What's the next move? This is when South Africans need to really address the underlying issues. The room, and I understand sometimes you have to clean your house to bring in new furniture. South Africans, you've cleaned the house. Let's say you have.